All right, guys, welcome back to SandsWay. We are on episode 3 today, and we have a new guest joining us, Lucas Sherman. You may know him as Sherman Plays on Instagram. And Lucas, do you have any other social media platforms that you're on, or are you just on Instagram? Or
It's a great question. Yeah, I Instagram is probably like home base for me. I've also got TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. So I'm around there.
oh,
Yeah.
got it, yeah, yeah, okay. And you've got about what over 2K followers on Instagram, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
And I guess just starting out before my first question, how long have you had that account? How long has that account been active? And
Hmm.
when did you start to see like serious growth with that account?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sherman Plays, which is like that's my brand, my alias, my creator name, my music name, all of
Yeah.
that. That was, Instagram was a thing when I was in middle school. And I think that's, whenever I got my first cell phone or a smartphone, rather, I was like, oh, everybody's got Instagram, time to give it a download. And
Oh yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it was my personal account, like, just for connecting with friends or whatever. And I don't know, I didn't really think of it as like a business account or like a creator account, whatever you'd want to call it,
Yeah.
until I started live streaming during COVID, and I came up with this alias Sherman Plays, mostly because my last name is Sherman, but like not a lot of people actually call me Lucas, even though that's my real first name. A lot of people I know in real life will be like, "Yo, what's up, Sherman?" or Shermanator or Sherm. I get a whole lot of that, but not a whole lot of Lucas, which is cool.
I was gonna
Um,
say I'm the outlier here because that's all I've been calling you for all this time. So
no. It's not like that at all. I like both names, so whatever you prefer.
yeah.
Um, but Sherman Plays was like, huh, I don't want to just do like one thing, and a crossover between the gaming interests that I have in my professional music career is like you both play music and play video games. So that way I wouldn't be inserted into a niche whenever I did live streaming, because I wanted it to be a community for musicians as well as people interested in video games. So that happened around COVID. And it still was kind of like my personal account. I didn't really take the next steps necessary in order to run it like a business, um, until maybe like 2 years ago. I started experimenting with making content, like making reels where I would just be giving advice. I would do like sax or violin covers, or I would do composer content. But one thing that, after experimenting for like 2 years, that finally stuck was making terrible arrangements of music, because as it turns out, people love cringe. And if you can get
Oh
people to
wow.
like listen to something for longer than 3 seconds, then like Instagram like really blows your stuff up.
Yeah.
So actually, like, it was about a month ago, I think, I came up with this idea of like, well, I didn't. It's all borrowed. There's no such thing as originality. But I
Yeah.
saw like rap videos, or not rap, but like people would be producing beats in like Logic or what's the other one? Garage Band, where it would be like
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah.
silliest, goofy stuff. Like people would use like cartoon sound effects and farts and like make a really like just silly, goofy beat. I loved it.
Oh wow.
But I was
Yeah.
like, why don't we do that for like orchestra music. So I've been making these arrangements that kind of have like meme sounds and that sound really bad, but also kind of like require a good bit of thought. Um, so those are the ones that ended up going viral, which is like I'm like kicking myself. I'm like, man, why didn't like a sax cover or something that like I'm a lot more proud of, reach? But sometimes you just gotta listen to Instagram and see what sticks. But a lot of the follower count has come from like 4 videos like that I've posted. I think the account has grown by a few hundred followers in like the last month because of that. So I guess I'm gonna continue making that kind of music, and hopefully, if that's your jam, then all the power to you.
I guess so. I guess so. Um, so I guess a little more context for I guess myself and for the listeners here. Um, which I know sometimes when you ask people, I feel like it's a bit awkward, only if they're like older. But how old are you, Lucas?
It's a great question. I am a young 25.
Oh, okay, okay. See, when we, I guess for everybody that doesn't know, Lucas and I met before at like a Crew Connect event, like a film event, before like last month or a couple months ago, and that's the first time we met. But I thought that you were, or I thought you told me that you were like 28 or 27 or so, and even that is like still young. But to hear 25, like you're only 3 years off from me. You're only about 3 years or 2 years older than me. So that's, I mean, still like super young and everything. But you're not even like out of college like that far, or out of high school that far. So
Mhm.
yeah, really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I were in school now, like if I continued to master's and PhD, I'd probably be in a PhD program. But yeah, I don't know. I really after undergrad, I was like, I don't think. Well, I kind of didn't really know what direction to take things. But we can kind of explore that later. But yeah, I think like in terms of age, I am like a PhD student now, which um yeah, I think I'll start feeling like older when I'm closer to 30, but right now I kind of feel the same as I did like 4 years ago, pretty
It's
much.
okay. I feel like, man, I feel the same. I feel like it's weird because I'm feeling older and I'm about to turn 23 in a few months. Like it's like 4 months or so, or 3 months. So it's getting really close, and it's weird because I feel like I could still be in high school. I feel like I have that mindset, I guess, in a way.
Mhm.
Not like the similar like studying wise or anything, or like the same thoughts that I had, but I feel like I could still be in high school, and I feel like I could obviously still be in college, only because it's been like 5 months or so since like the graduation. So it hasn't even been that long anyway. But um, I guess with that being said, um, I guess we can get into, so just I was gonna have you tell me about just in general about yourself, but I guess let's try to start from the beginning, and I guess
Mhm.
more specifically, since you are a composer, let's start with, how did music impact you early on in your life, or did you notice it earlier on in your life? And I guess just take me up through middle school so far.
Totally. Music has always been there in my life. To me, I don't think music is any different than breathing or sunlight, it's always been there. I come from a wonderful family of musicians, and I'm very blessed for all the opportunity that my parents, facilitated in regards to music, but also art in general. I'm just so very blessed. My mom, when I was growing up, she taught piano lessons. So she, a phenomenal classical pianist. So like, um, if you're really into classical music, I would always hear Beethoven sonatas or Chopin playing. And when I think about being a kid and like falling asleep at night, and just feeling really warm and cozy, those pieces are 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 what flood my memory. And my dad, he is a percussionist. He plays drum set, but also has his own drum circle ministry, where he we have like a whole bunch of like African percussion, and he really enjoys bringing uh, that experience to all different types of events. And my brother is one of the greatest marching snare drummers in the world. So it's purely environment and opportunity. But my parents always said that, as a baby in the crib, I was singing myself to sleep, which is something I still do today. Uh, I don't still, fall asleep in a crib. I've
Yeah.
got a bed,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I'm always singing to myself, and I think being in that environment and hearing great music all the time, it's just something that ingrained itself into my core as a person. Um, my mom took my brother and I to a it's like a music program for early development. So like I remember
Oh wow. Yeah.
like being like a 2 or 3 year old, and they taught us about rhythm, and we would play on cardboard instruments. And so it was always present from the very beginning. And um we had an opportunity growing up to pick an instrument, and my parents, again, very privileged that they offered this, but they set aside their time and resources to take me to private lessons. So I was like thinking to myself as a 7-year old, okay, what instrument should I pick? My brother chose piano, and I'm like, okay. And I don't know where this logic came from, but I was like, what's going to be an easy instrument that I could just absolutely get good at fast? Violin. And any like people in the orchestra world are probably like cringing at that, because they're like, doesn't it take like 10 years of playing that instrument to even like play in tune? And
Oh my
yes,
gosh.
you're absolutely right. You're going to sound really bad for about 10 years, but um I didn't know that as a 7-year-old. I didn't know a whole lot. So please give me grace. So I started taking violin lessons, and I was fortunate enough to have a really great teacher. I grew up in York County, which there's not really a whole lot happening there. I always joke like, it's never the destination. You kind of go through York to get somewhere else, in Pennsylvania. But they had wonderful music resources there in the forms of teachers and in the school districts.
Oh
So I
nice.
was
Yeah.
I was blessed with a very fine violin teacher. And that was my world, doing the orchestra thing. And that's how I made friends and kind of got out of my shell, because I was a very very shy kid. And then I really wanted to be like my older brother and be in the band. So in 6th grade, I decided to pursue another instrument, which happened to be saxophone, and I really loved it. We were playing. I mean, it was kind of classical stuff there too, and I really loved it. And I got another blessed opportunity to pursue private lessons for saxophone as well, and I started taking them, I think the summer after 6th grade. And there I encountered one of my greatest role models and coaches in my life, my saxophone teacher. And it was strange because I went in there and I wanted nothing to do with playing jazz or pop or R&B, anything like that. I just wanted to play the music that I was playing on my violin, but like on the saxophone, because that's all I knew. That's all I cared about. I was really tunnel visioned when it came to music at that time. But my teacher kind of had me read some books, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, man, like you're doing really well at this. You want to try and learn these scales?" I was like, "Sure, yeah, absolutely." And then all of a sudden, he was having me play to backing tracks and studying Charlie Parker and John Coltrane, and he basically like forced me into jazz, which was like the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because that's also about the time that I started composing music of my own. And
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't really know anything about like how to compose music. I just kind of tried to like make stuff that sounded like the orchestra stuff I'd been playing my entire life. But jazz, the interesting thing about like making music on the spot, you learn a lot about how music functions, and that was integral for my compositions as well, because it's like, rather than just like guessing, I learned a bit about music theory and kind of incorporated like the orchestral sounds that were in my ear with the jazz composition training that I was learning um, from my saxophone teacher. And that's how I got into composition.
And that is really interesting, and I think there's like a good amount to break down here, especially uh, in your younger years, in your childhood, especially like your early childhood is. Um, I think it's so cool that when you say you have a music family and your mom is involved, your dad is involved, your older brother is involved, like you've really had a such a firm foundation for that. And um, just like what you were saying with like being able to choose instruments and listening to your mom or your parents like during the evening if they were playing something, like you would fall asleep to that. And it was such a um, it was such a good atmosphere, I think. And I guess I'm not trying to say like I'm not trying to say like I or like other people didn't have like good atmospheres like that, but I think you're very right that you are so blessed that when you have um, parents that do the same thing that you're interested in or that you have like those traits for. And I honestly I feel like you would probably say so too, but I honestly think that when you have your parents or your family that is like a lineage of like music or like let's just say film or even in STEM like mathematics or different sciences or whatever scientists, um, it kind of trickles down some way, whether it's through DNA in that way or if it's just some sort of something that's like non-science related, but it's something that is just like in the spirit or like in the heart or something like that that just like transfers down like to your children or and I'm not even talking about like teaching them. I'm not even talking about, hey, we want you to do this or we think that you would be good at this. It transfers down in that way. Do you think uh you got it that way more of than just because the teaching part obviously helps and it keeps you like on track like as a guide,
Mhm.
but do you think that you felt probably from the very beginning that you were a musician and that you were going to eventually become a composer?
That's a wonderful question. I am a product of my environment and my time. That's a direct, well, I might be butchering it, but that's supposed to be a direct quote from one of my greatest mentors and a musician whom I revere among who's second to none, and that's Michael Brecker, um, the greatest saxophone player to ever live. And I really resonate with that. Um, I none of the things I've, like with that background, none of that had to do with me. It's as you said, it's purely the environment of my mom having her students come in and play the piano. Like that was in my ear. I know there was this program called Baby Mozart, which was like these classical music tapes that my mom would play while I was in the womb, just to like have that exposure. So there are melodies I recognize that are probably from before I was even like born, which is insane. And
Yeah.
I think like creativity and art making, not just music itself, was just like so encouraged. And again, such a wonderful blessing to be able to say this. I don't think there was ever a doubt in my mind that I would continue um, composing or making music. The decision to pursue it, at the collegiate level, that was, I don't know if that was really the goal of it, when I was a little kid, but and that's definitely a decision I made closer to senior year of high school. But I think my devotion to art was solidified as a young kid, purely for exploring myself and relationships with others, along with just like pursuit of beauty and having fun.
So let's take it back to when you selected your first instrument and you started to pursue violin, in which you said, like, okay, in hindsight, why would you choose something like this? Because it's so hard to learn, or it's just it takes so much practice that you know, it wouldn't be a great first instrument, I guess, to recommend to a lot of people. So from going from violin and then eventually to saxophone, and then knowing that your mom plays and had played piano and was a piano teacher. Did I hear that right? She was a piano teacher.
Mhm.
So and then your brother also pursued piano, and that's what he chose. What stuck out? Why did the violin stick out to you, and then why did the saxophone eventually stick out to you?
Violin, um, how do I put? I think even today, but growing up, I was definitely kind of a diva, you know? Like I I don't know if I could have articulated this as I am able to today, but I really love virtuosity, and I think a lot of the instruments that I was, through, the classical music that I heard from like my mom and so forth, violin was like, oh, that's the melody instrument. That's the one that's going to play the tune. So I was like, oh, okay. So like I'll get to like show off and like really get into the nitty gritty. So that's kind of what appealed to me to violin. Also, like strings are such a gorgeous sound. We didn't have a string player in the household at that time as well. So um I think it's purely from being exposed to mostly classical music growing up, and then wanting to play something where I could kind of like be virtuosic. The saxophone thing was like I wanted to just be like my brother and play in the school band. And there might have been some carryover. I think functionally violin and saxophone, they can they can have similar functions in their respective like orchestra concert band sort of thing. I wasn't exposed to jazz until later on in my life, but I now see that a lot clearer, because a lot of the times in like a jazz band or even like on records, you'll hear the saxophone is like the lead solo instrument. A lot of a lot of music has the saxophone player play the improvised solo. So in that way, it's kind of like the diva instrument that violin in the orchestra world is. But I'm really glad I chose saxophone because it was the complete opposite of violin in the way that it is a very forgiving instrument to learn. It only takes a couple months to get a sound out of it, and then once you understand what order to press the keys down, I mean, you're set. And then it just comes to playing like with better technique and so forth. But the violin thing, you have to sink about 10 years to play something that is not gonna like sound um like uh like nails on a chalkboard. But saxophone
Oh yeah,
it's a
yeah.
lot quicker.
So, I guess now getting into high school, because I guess up until sixth grade, we'll skip middle school for now. We'll just go to like, let's just say junior high, ninth grade, ninth
Yeah.
through 12th. Um, so you're probably doing pretty much the same thing. Let's actually go to let's do sophomore year because then we're going to be closing into kind of your later years and then graduation. So,
Mhm.
what did those later high school years look like? And even sophomore, just starting off, I guess sophomore year, and then you can carry on to senior year and then graduation. Were you thinking of pursuing a career in music? Did your parents support a career in music, or were you thinking, okay, like I want to pursue this, I want this to be maybe more of a hobby and I'm looking for something different? Or
Mhm.
was music just such a strong pull that you're like, okay, I'm set. I've been learning all of this for these last several years. I really want to do this.
Sophomore year, from what I can remember, and I'm sorry to say my memory isn't very strong, was the fork in the road. I hadn't give much thought to what I really wanted to do with my life. And that's also been something that's been a question for even in recent memory. So that's an ongoing thing. So if you are a sophomore in high school and are listening to this and think, we have it all figured out 10 years down the road, don't worry about it. It's okay
Oh my
to
gosh,
not
yeah,
have
no.
the answers.
No.
But at this point, I had been getting my hands on as much music opportunity as I could. There's jazz band, there's a small like jazz ensembles like outside of school. I did marching band for a bit. I played in orchestra. I played in a symphony outside of school. I did competitions. I was involved in theater, and that's a big part of who I am today is a thespian, someone who enjoys um, theater and the dramatic arts.
Yeah.
So it was like you know, honestly, I didn't have the time to really benefit from listening to myself and really thinking about my future, which that's not a fault of anyone, but my own and the situation of having a lot of great opportunity. But I remember I was interested in these design classes and not like design like graphic design in high school. And I'm really grateful for the opportunities that presented themselves in my particular school district. They had a lot of great avenues for exploring what career you may want to pursue. And so I took this it's called EBD, Engineering by Design class, and I really liked it. I worked
Oh wow.
with AutoCAD, and it was kind of like a stepping stone if you wanted to either become like an engineer or an architect. And I took architecture another year in high school, and I was like, you know what? I really like the design aspect of this and having that creative outlet. I also liked playing Minecraft, so of course I loved making houses in
Oh
Reddit,
yeah.
or Revit, whatever it is. Um, I also liked kind of using the strategic part of my brain, which I think comes from um, being really invested in my studies as a kid. That was like an outlet for me, was like really hitting the books hard. That stopped ever since I started playing Clash of Clans in class. I think like freshman year of high school. Stay off your
Oh wow.
phones and keep studying. Keep
Yeah.
studying. Don't play video games during class. Any high schoolers listening, and middle schoolers as well.
Yeah.
Definitely pay attention to your teachers. Um, but so the architecture for me was like, oh, yeah, I combine this strategic thinking and this creative thinking, and it just married so well. So I was like, I guess that's what I'm going to pursue, is like that or engineering, because I was like, oh, I'm smart. Like all these smart people are going to be engineers. I didn't know what engineering was. I barely knew what
Yeah.
architecture was. Like I was like, I like playing Minecraft, and that's like seemed like the most Minecraft related career. But thankfully I had people in my life at that time who were like, you're not going into music? And I was like, no, like that's not a career path. And what that comes from is growing up in an area where the arts are, they're, I mean, I was lucky with the school district I had, but nobody walks around like calling themselves an artist or having these huge dreams. Like it was I mean, it's a rural area, so like there's big farming, there's big uh there's everyone's big into like getting into trade school. So that like confidence in myself that I have now from, living in a city for the past like 7 years, that wasn't present in my life. So it was like, oh, so like I go to music school, and then what? You know, I was very concerned with the end result. I was concerned with even being good enough, but I realized like music, even if it doesn't find itself in a career, it's something that I do want to study beyond high school. And I really surprised myself. And this kind of this may lead itself towards the graduation aspect. So I'll kind of put a pause in it there for now. Um,
So that was all. That was that was really interesting, and um, I guess I have one point, but I guess one follow up. But so what? And you may have already said it, but what was the initial interest in um, actual engineering and architecture? I think that you said for architecture wise, you liked the because it does, and it has this element involved, like the artistic element that it has, and the visuals that you can build and that you can see, but you also liked the logical, and I guess this shows that I'm not a STEM student or I'm not STEM minded at all, but like the technical aspect or like the scientific aspect of it. Like you said that you kind of had like those two parts of your brain a little bit, or at least for like the technical side, you think that could work out well with architecture. And then with engineering more, I guess besides like playing Minecraft or just like other things like you enjoyed within that a little bit, what pulled you towards those more STEM fields? Like what separated that between your artistic abilities and your artistic mindset, and then, oh, instead of this, I might actually try engineering, I might try architecture, I might try something in these fields or similar to that.
yeah, it's a great question. And I don't quite understand my logic. So like just please bear in mind this is like a 15 or 16-year-old kid who like doesn't really know a whole lot, is kind of thinking
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
So like the engineering thing, I've always loved designing things, and I think that kind of plays into how I view myself more like as a creative or an artist instead of like just a musician. I loved art class. I loved I really loved math as well, until I, stopped paying attention. But that's a whole
Exactly.
another thing
Yeah.
that we can talk about.
Yeah.
Um, but and I think I would have done well in like physics or chemistry. But that's kind of when I took a step back from like really pursuing academics seriously. But I don't think engineering was as good of a fit for me. But I ended up making this is
Oh
if you can
wow.
even see this here. This
Yeah.
is something I 3D printed in I think I don't know if it was my engineering by design class, but it's a pencil holder that has the
Oh
Big
wow.
Ben in London, and this is like my ode to the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, because
Nice.
he's
Nice. Yep.
Big Ben, and then this is Big Ben. So like
Exactly.
not a functional, device that's going to save lives someday or anything. So like I'm more of like a designing products kind of guy, but we did some of that in engineering, and we also built bridges out of toothpicks, and we sent them to competitions and see how much of a load they
Oh
can
wow.
they can handle. So it was just a kind of a fascination thing. But if you put me in the classroom and try to understand physics, like that's where I tapped out.
Yes.
Like I
Yeah.
when I studied math and felt like I could hang and do well in math, that was its own thing. But as soon as I checked out academically, the whole hope of being an engineer someday kind of faded as well.
And you know what's funny is I honestly understand everything that you were coming from and that you were interested in for like engineering and the architecture wise, because those were maybe not necessarily engineering, or at least I probably didn't know what it was. Even if I was in my senior year, I probably didn't even know what engineering was. Like
Mhm.
I've heard of it, but I didn't really know. And I think similar to you, like I enjoyed architecture and like how things look, and maybe the engineering aspect in that as well. And I always like to think of myself as I could be good at math. Like I really could be good at this. I
Yeah.
really want to be, but I don't know if it was like I don't know what to call it. Oh, maybe like narcissism, or I don't want to say like arrogance, because I don't think I was like arrogant in that way, but
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe like narcissism, or like me just having a big head, like, oh man, like I like this so much, and like I know that this involves math, like I know that this has a math aspect, but like I could do it, like it's not that hard. I feel like this would be cool, and this would be like a safe job. This could be something that
Mm.
is like creative, but I could still be involved in. And like it was like ninth grade. Or you know what? It
Yep.
started in probably like seventh or eighth grade. Pre-algebra, algebra one, even geometry, and then going up through. Like I never did pre-calc. I never did calc one. I never took any of those higher maths in high school because I did so bad at pre-algebra. I'm pretty sure I almost failed at pre-algebra. I got like a D minus.
Oh no.
It was that bad. Yeah. Well, I didn't really pay that much attention either. Like I wasn't like one of those bad kids that was like distracting other people in class. I literally just couldn't get it. And I feel like if I would have spent more time, then sure, but I was more focused on watching videos, or like I wasn't doing anything I'm doing right now. I wasn't doing then, but I was watching YouTube, or I was watching sports, or I was like I was doing like recreational things, and I'm like, I know I don't want to go into like math now. Even like past that one year, I'm like, if I can't do pre-algebra, or if I can't do algebra one, I can't do any of these higher maths. I can't do any of this. And then that's when I figured out, oh, I guess I can't be an architect, or I can't do something in engineering, or I can't do something like that creative, but in
Mhm.
a more, like I said, STEM field, or like a STEM way. So but then going off your point for when you focused on those two instead of music, and whether it was family or friends, I guess probably more friends, or like other people saying, well, I don't know if like music going into that is like an actual career. I think that's more of a hobby. And that has just been so prevalent, like I guess not directly from me, but I've heard that from so many people that,
Mm,
especially creatives, they always hear that, hey, that's just a like, especially from their parents, this is
mhm.
just a hobby. Like, this is not something that you can do in the future. You don't have a good chance, or even if you do have a career, your earnings are going to be very low compared to everybody else. And
Yeah.
which is sometimes true. And I feel like the statistics on that, because we would all, I'm pretty sure everyone has done this, especially in high school. But when you're getting ready to graduate, and especially like if you're a creative, or if you want to go into a creative field, you're looking up what are the average earnings for a composer, or what are the average earnings for a video editor, or what are the average earnings for, something else related. And it's always like 30K, 40K, maybe
Mhm.
45K, maybe around 50K if you're like in a city or so. And I'm just like, I feel like some of those are actually skewed, because
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody is going like, it doesn't matter what you pursue. If you're going to be a composer, if you're going to do something else in music, if you're going to do something in film or animation or whatever, I'm not saying that everybody is going to make, six figures or seven figures, but I just think that the numbers are kind of dishonest in a way, and
Mhm.
they don't show that there's actually more people that can make more money with this than there actually is. I definitely think that social media has been a huge help for that, and like an
Mhm.
explosion when it comes to like the arts and the creative fields. But just for that point, I like that you said that, like, well, I'm kind of being pulled here because I feel like I do want to do this, but like it's not a career. I don't think that I can make something in this, or like I'm gonna have to study more or whatever. And then at that point, like, I don't know if I'm gonna still like where I'm working, or if I can do something on my own, if that's gonna be fruitful. Maybe I should just stick with a safer path. So I thought that was really interesting, because I mean that definitely resonates with me. And
Mhm.
uh, I just think that I don't want to say, I don't want to just say that, oh well, people need more belief, like people need more people to believe in them, because
Mm.
sometimes that sounds kind of weird. But
Right.
to me, I think that's true. I think that people, yes, they need to be realistic, but if you truly work hard and you work as hard as you can and you're experimenting with different stuff, I don't really see a way that you can't be successful. And not,
Mhm.
like I said, not successful in the way of you have to earn six figures or you have to earn seven figures, but like you can still have a fruitful life, or a comfortable life doing what you want to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thing I wanted to add before I touch on that, this was a gift for graduating from my violin teacher,
Oh
and
man.
for the audio listeners, another day has passed and I didn't use algebra once. It's this little wooden thing that I keep
Exactly.
on
That's
my
so
desk,
perfect. Oh
but
my gosh.
it's low key kind of true. But no, no, and one thing that has definitely altered my brain chemistry when it comes to belief in myself as an artist, you gotta, and this is not just you, but anyone listening, you have to get your hands on a copy of The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. Again, The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. It has opened myself from years of, the negative responses to pursuing art that we've heard time and time again growing up, and that alter your subconscious into thinking these things that, oh, like, art isn't a career, why should I go to school for it? um
Is
I'm
it
not.
recent? Is it a recent book, or is it like within like the last 20 years, last 10 years or so, or
I believe the past 20 or 30 years, there are
okay.
updated versions of the book. Um, it is something that you can, if you got a Spotify subscription or Audible, it's going to be on there. I listen to the audiobook because for me, reading it kind of pulls me out of creative energy, which is, it might sound like a
Oh
cop
yeah.
out, but I can touch
Yeah.
on that as well. But um, no, it's a book that was because I'm chronically online and on TikTok. I saw some people just absolutely rave about it. I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't know if I'm blocked creatively, but I'll give it a shot. I'll listen to the book, and yeah, it's a must. Like, I cannot recommend use of your time as a creative any other way than instead to read or listen to this book. And one of the things that the author Julia Cameron touches upon is those naysayers, the people who have been creatively blocked, because within us there's an artist child, right? There's a reason that Hans Zimmer, one of the great film composers of today, he says when we make music, it's not creating music, it's not building music, it's playing music. Who plays? Kids. There's an inner child within us
Yeah.
that we come back to when we pursue creativity, whether it is drawing, animating, writing scripts. Like, there is a younger version of ourselves that we are tapping into and allowing to pursue that creativity. And unfortunately, there are people who go their entire life being fed these lies that, oh, you're no good, like you would never make it, whatever that means, or
Exactly.
they're
Yeah.
deeply hurt themselves because it's a cycle. Like, maybe you have a parent who is just like worried about someone's stability, but maybe their dream was crushed by their parents because they're like, oh no, you have to become a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
This music thing is a hobby, it's not a career, which comes from a place of deep insecurity and hurt. And so then, the parent lives their life, and they always have this fascination with the arts, but they never pursue it as a career or in the way they want to, because they had someone who's a block creative blocked their creativity, and then all of a sudden it gets passed on to you. But this book is about unwiring though that subconscious, whether it be guilt or uh, essentially blockage, so that you can just make art freely. But for anyone pursuing the arts beyond high school, I want you to pick up a notebook. And this is the homework from the,
Yes.
the book.
Yes.
So I'm just going to save you a few steps. Write your morning thoughts every day. Don't skip a day. Write three pages of just like a vomiting your conscious mind onto the pages. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be real. It can be oh, I'm really annoyed at so and so. They kind of, or it's like, oh, I can't believe like I have to go mop the floors again. Like, I'm not really looking forward to today, or whatever it be. But I really want you to allow your soul to speak, and that'll help you figure out, like, what do you really want out of life? Because I know you mentioned using the salary tracker thing, and like that's not going to really
Yeah.
help you at all for creative pursuits. And if you're looking for money, don't pursue the arts. Like, if you want to have a comfortable living, do not pursue the arts in the name of money. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not a thing where um you're going to be rewarded financially because of it. And also, like, that comes to college as well. If you are getting an art degree and you're going to go like thousands upon thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to go to art school, like, don't do that either. Like, if you're blessed and someone else is financing your education, or you're blessed with a scholarship, yeah, look into it. But living in debt is no joke, and is something that could potentially, ruin your adult life before it even starts. So be very, very careful. But for me, and for a lot of other people, I don't know how else to live other than by making art like the priority. Like, it's always been that way, even when I didn't quite believe it, or I thought of it as pursuing it as a career, and I was mumble jumbled, but you know, it's always been a saving grace for me. It's been the way I make friends. It's been the way that I challenge myself. It's been the way I express myself. Like, and I've tried putting music on the back burner and like trying, like, there was a point in college where I tried to do a dual degree, but it's my reason for being on earth is creativity. And if you feel that way and you want to do the college thing, and do art school, as long as you have a plan for the financial aspect of getting through school, and not really having that expectation of, oh, I'm going to make, $40,000 with an art job. You know, art jobs aren't always a thing. Like, you may have to, have a job even after music school that isn't related to music at all. But like, as long as you get off of that horse, uh, I think that you'll be fine. Like, don't have this expectation of like, you're gonna have a music career right off of the bat. Of music. I really don't know a whole lot of people who have had that fortune. Um, but music careers take a long time to develop. But also, just because you don't have a music job doesn't mean you're not an artist. Don't let,
Yeah.
because someone's telling you, oh, you don't make X and X salary, or you don't have X or Y job, that you're not an artist. That is their inner blocked creative, negating your artistry. So something to pick up on.
And I'll I guess I'll provide a sort of opposition. Maybe not like a source of opposition, but I think that yes, maybe within the last uh yeah, we'll say last 15 years or so, right before social media. I know that YouTube was kind of active in 2010, but there were not earners like there are now.
Yep.
And certainly not with Instagram, because Instagram came a little bit later, and so did a lot of the other social media platforms, and the way of making money as well. The I just had the word for it. It's like the ad or um, um, what is it called? Like I guess we'll just say advertisement for lack of a better word. I had the word, but we'll just say making money by ads. I think that yes, thinking that way within like the last 20 years, especially, and going to an art school or going to music school, like that degree is still useful. And I think it depends, because it depends on what school you go to, and your professors and everything, and how much you do in college, how much experience that you gain through college, what you learned before college, what you were doing in your high school years, what you were doing while you were growing up and everything, and how hard you were working with it. And I guess I would say, because I don't know, I guess I don't have any data to really back this up by earning wise. If people were earning less in creative careers or in music careers, art careers 20 years ago, just coming out of college,
Hmm.
than they are now. But I do think, and like I said before, social media is such a huge explosion that you don't necessarily have to be like an entrepreneur, but I I think that people who are starting their music careers on Instagram, on TikTok, playing covers, introducing originals at some point, doing some sort of wacky skits with their music, or um, like I guess yeah, co-producing skits of like animation, and you're doing the music for it, or
Hmm.
live skits and you're doing the music for it, or just anything surrounding that, anything kind of in that field. I think that people have the potential to earn a lot more, and
Hmm.
I know that not everybody wants to make, like I brought it before, a six-figure salary. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, and upwards, or seven figures. They might not want that, and that's completely fine. Everybody is different. But I think that if you want to pursue a higher earning or a higher salary, that social media has given us, social media is a blessing in that way. Social media is, it is a blessing and it is a curse. There's a lot of flaws with it, and then there's a lot of pros with it as well. But I think
Hmm.
for creatives, it is such a blessing in that way that if you are unique and if you work hard and you're consistent, I think that you have a extraordinary potential for success in that way, rather than just being 20 or 30 years before being tied to college, and then you're trying to work for a studio, or you're trying to work for or you're just trying to be like a music teacher or a composer or a teacher at a college or something. Instead of just going into those jobs, we see a lot more people going independent, or at least they're
Hmm.
starting out independent, and then maybe down the road, you're right, it is going to take time. It's going to take 5 years or 10 years, or it's going to take 10 years to sign with a record label, or maybe a smaller record label, and you'll have to keep working. But I think that social media has given us such a step up in that way that uh, it has made it easier. And you know what? It really makes sense, because when you think of creatives, they are more independent than anybody else. All of these other jobs were designed in a way to, yes, work with other people, because creatives, they work with other people as well. But these other jobs, engineering, or um, just other jobs in STEM specifically, or the humanities, you were always meant to work in a place with other people. But for a lot of creatives can work alone. They can work by themselves. They can produce their own content. They can make their own music, and they can make deals, sell it, license it, whatever, with other people and with other producers and everything, or I guess co-producers. But I think that when we think of creative wise, that it is a more independent field than we thought, even in the older times of it.
No, sure, and I really appreciate your clarification. And I think you're exactly right. The social media game has really opened the barrier to entry, I think, because
That's right.
now
Yeah.
you don't need necessarily an agent or someone to help you with marketing. You can develop the soft and hard skills, like behind every production, there's lights, there's equipment, there are ideas. Like, I just don't want people to have the impression that, like, it's easy after school,
Oh
because
yeah.
that's
Yes.
where I'm coming from.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have to create, like, even with social media being the ticket, which it has been for me, you still have to really grind out the skills, which they're not music related at all. Like, if you happen to just like to play Beethoven on your oboe, like, unless you're auditioning for orchestras or you're going to become an oboe teacher, like, you got to get those additional skills that
Yeah.
for social media will help you market yourself at the very least. But I agree, you can make a social media channel out of anything. Like, I have a channel where I and my good friend J Baby Smooth, we eat plastic utensils.
I like
And
that name. That's pretty good. Yeah.
thank you. Edible fork spoon, if you want to check us out. But we just literally eat forks and spoons, and like that. Like, we have a following. Like, our channel's growing, and you can make a social media out of anything. Um, but you have to think like a business person. Um, and I wish I could say college teaches you that, but it's not always the case.
And it
But
depends. Yeah, it really does. It really does.
the great thing is, though, you can make a lot of friends in music school who might be good at those things, and you can kind of collaborate or bounce ideas off each other. Or there's countless ideas being shared on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So I agree. The time to make it happen is in 2025, which is this current year. The barrier to entry, like, people are shooting videos from their iPhone and making reels out of it, putting a block of text and like adding audio, and you know that's really all you need, for any kind of social media making. But if you don't want to do the social media thing, I'm sorry, it's kind of mandatory for people who want to develop a creative career. I would say you got to have some sort of presence there. But yeah, if you want a job like teaching or whatever, like, that's kind of more of what I was saying with my earlier comments about,
Oh
thinking
yeah.
about
Yeah, yeah,
going
yeah.
to music school, the financial investment part of it. But you gotta, you kind of gotta pull yourself up and be your own boss in that way. Which, I don't know about you, it's not always the most fun thing for
Oh no.
me. Is
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
running the
Yes.
business. Like, I much prefer the creative side of things. But you don't really get a choice.
Yeah. And I guess arguably you could say that at least from right now and at least what we're viewing right now, I would say 2025 is the peak of that no barrier where you can get in. I mean, throughout the throughout the 5 years from 2020 until now, social media has grown so much and it's become so much easier to just initially get into that there's so many free tools to use. A lot of the things, even within the past 10 years, you had to pay for. But
Hmm.
there's so many free editing softwares. There's so many free tools. I mean, even what I'm using right now to record this podcast is free.
Yeah.
This software is free right now, so it is, and YouTube is free, and
Mhm,
Instagram is free. I guess specifically Instagram for social media offers so many tools in it, and it's also free. So
mhm,
even if you want to go that route, you don't even need like an actual video editor if you don't want to. I guess I wouldn't.
mhm,
I guess I wouldn't recommend that personally because you might have more. A more variety or freedom to have in a video editor rather than an Instagram because sometimes it's a little fuzzy in some ways, but the 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 barrier is down, and I would say the
mhm,
peak is right now because we're pretty much at the peak of the podcast phase right now. Everyone's doing a podcast. Everyone has a social media channel, a social media account. So the time to get in, yes, you're correct, is definitely right now, and I think it's the easiest time to get in right now with the free resources and everything. But yes, let's not be deceived that it is so much harder than you think to continue and to stay consistent. Even like I was saying before we started, and even probably when we started a little bit, that even though it's easy to start and you have those tools and everything, you have to be consistent with what you're doing,
mhm,
and you cannot rely on motivation. You
mm,
have to rely on discipline in doing this, and knowing that there are going to be times that you don't want to do it. You don't want to edit videos. That's something for me. I don't like editing. I don't like a lot of editing because it's timely and I have to, practice more to either use different tools to make it faster or just practice to become more efficient. Whether that's speaking and recording to make the recording shorter or to actually edit more efficiently so it's a shorter period of time. But even when that happens, you're still going to have to do it. You're still going to have to edit at some point. You're still going to have to record at some point,
mhm.
whether you're scripting, like I said, going off the cuff, if you're outlining or whatever. It still takes something. So yes, don't think that the social media people have it easy and that any account that you look at, you're just like, oh, I can do this. This is going to take a month or so. No, that's like the really bad thing about comparing now is you're only
Mhm.
seeing the successful accounts. You think that people with tens of thousands of followers or millions of followers, they only spent a couple months on here or they only spent a couple weeks. And while viral videos may be true, it is not true for everyone, or it's not true at the start. And it takes a lot of time. And even the bigger influencers will say, this took me 2 to 3 years. This took me 2 to 5 years, and I was still performing on a consistent basis. I was still dropping 5 videos a week or 3 videos a week, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or just social media. I
Mhm.
was I was staying consistent, but I needed time to build. Still, people weren't gelling with it immediately. I still had to be putting in time and effort. So, uh, absolutely, it is the barrier is gone, and it's
Mhm.
so easy to get in, but consistency is key, and being unique is key, and having that personality. And I guess another good thing to point out is social media is not all the same. So you don't have to be like everybody else. And I'm not saying you don't have to be exciting necessarily, because people tend to gravitate towards more exciting people, but there's different niches of
Mhm.
social media. You can be more, I guess I don't have a lot here, but like you can be more sarcastic, or you can be more down to earth, or you know those personalities. There's sections and there's groups of people that enjoy that, but sometimes it just depends on the algorithm and where that's going to be put out and how many viewers you're initially getting. So it's tough all around, and like we were talking about at the beginning, it's not set. You don't know. You just literally have to keep going, and you have to keep trying in order for something to work. But that sort of is the motivation. It's, if I stop now, I don't know. But if I keep going, there's also a chance. There's a possibility, and that possibility and that chance, in percent wise, will grow. So it just, it depends, and you have to be in it for the long haul, and you have to have the heart and the mindset for it ultimately.
Absolutely. I did wanna drop some I don't wanna gatekeep some resources that are free. DaVinci Resolve for video editing. You can get it on, I believe, Mac and Windows. If you're interested in making your own, like, films or even, like, for social media content or YouTube videos, DaVinci is a good option for you. Um, for social media specifically, Canva, the website, is super great. You can choose to have like a
Oh
paid
yeah.
subscription or they have a free
Yes.
version. That's great for making graphics and even making your own like reels, which is interesting. But you can also
Yes.
make promotional
Yeah.
materials there. For musicians, check out Audacity for recording, um,
Yep.
completely
Yep.
free. OBS, like if you're trying to live stream or record YouTube videos, like what that does is allows you to capture your screen and also add like if you've got a camera recording you at the same time while you're recording your screen, like that's free.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
There's the Edits app for Instagram, which is like specifically for making and editing reels. There's CapCut, which there's a free version of that
Yep.
as well. So take advantage of the free stuff. Like don't feel the need to pay. I mean, I know for like
To
video
pay.
editing
Yeah.
software, there's kind of a minimum amount of memory your computer would need to have in order to run it,
Yeah.
but um, there's a lot of free stuff that can get you going. So feel free to check out any of those resources. And I apologize if I'm forgetting any of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree. Take advantage of all the free things in the beginning before paying for anything. And if you see something that is subscription based, or you have to pay for it, measure it against other things. Do your research. Take some time to do research, and look up what is all included. What are the tools all included? What are all the features and everything that you get versus other subscriptions? Because even with Premiere, which is my main video editor for YouTube, it has a lot of good features, and it's paid, of course, and it's a part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. But I feel so much safer using that because I've used that through college as well. But it's a very stable program. It's a very stable program to use, and it's very easy to use. It's a very easy thing to use as well. So check that out. But yeah, always measure your subscriptions. Don't be paying $50 a month. Don't try to pay $50 a month for anything. Maybe pay $20 a month, or if you have the money, or $10 a month, or $9.99. Do something like that, or look at the free ones instead, because it's I guess I don't want to be too harsh with it, saying it's like a ripoff, but you don't want to spend money, especially money that you don't have. But you don't want to spend money that you could have saved, and you could have put it towards other equipment or something else that mattered, especially. So yeah, but with that, so going on to college now, and I guess let me just ask, did you go to college, or did you go to college for a time, or did you complete your degree, or?
Yeah, yeah, completed a bachelor in fine arts at Carnegie Mellon, my undergraduate degree, and that finished May of 2022.
Okay, awesome. So going into college, and the years with that, and the impact and everything, tell me what you thought of college, going into a creative field like this, going into fine arts, and continuing to pursue music. What was that like at the collegiate level?
Yeah, yeah, no, it was just such a blessing to be in an environment like Carnegie Mellon is set up such that it's modeled after like what they call a classical conservatory. So what that means is like most of your classes are going to be related to music, even though it's a university. And like there were some gen eds, but you like when you're in the arts at CMU, that is your thing, whether it be drama, like fine art or music. Like you're in your own little incubator with like all your other classmates who are super talented and driven and doing really cool things. So that was I think the people my friends that I made was the most fruitful part of being at Carnegie Mellon. It was just an experience where everybody was super talented and willing to collaborate, and that energy towards creation was infectious. And I think I think a lot of us, I think actually everybody is kind of a product of who they surround themselves with. And I'm not saying to like be strategic with like the friendships that you have, because that's weird. You should be friends with your friends,
Yeah,
but also like if you surround yourself with people that you have fun with, but are also like battery chargers rather than battery drainers. That's so
yeah,
key, because if everyone is like that you reach out to and confide in are making their dreams happen, well, that kind of bleeds into the way you look at yourself as
yeah,
well. Like
yes,
if you have friends who are winning competitions, which that's not all of what art is about, but if they're winning competitions,
yeah,
if they're submitting things to festivals, and they're auditioning to grad programs, it becomes a subconscious thing of like, why can't I do that? But I learned a lot of great things in school. The whole thing with Carnegie Mellon was that was my reach school. I had I still don't know how I got in today. My academics were good, but I mean I take it they probably like for undergraduate music, they don't take like GPA or SAT scores into account. Otherwise, I would have never made it.
oh,
When
okay,
compared to a
yeah,
program such as like CS or engineering. But actually, the crazy thing there was I was initially rejected. because I was
Oh
18 and
wow.
didn't know what I was doing, and I signed up for the wrong major. So I got this email after like my audition. They were like, sorry to say, you weren't accepted, which is what I thought would happen, with it being the Reach school. And then I don't know if it was like a couple weeks or like a month later, I got this other email from the School of Music being like, oh, like just like here's the next steps for preparing for your journey at CMU. And I emailed back and was like, hey, um, I didn't make it in. What's going on here? And they were like, oh no, you made it. I was like, what?
Oh.
They're like,
Huh.
yeah, no, you didn't make it into the music technology program, but you made it in for music composition. And I was like, oh,
Oh yeah.
so that changes things. Because I was planning on going to other schools, but I was like, oh, well, awesome. I really appreciate CMU taking a chance in me and my portfolio. And I got to study with fantastic faculty and really honed in on the orchestral concert composition. So a lot of the degree was understanding orchestra instruments, how they function, what they sound like, and writing music for solo players, for small groups, and then also the capstone project was writing a piece for an entire orchestra, and then we got to premiere it in April of my graduating year. So
Oh wow.
uh,
Wow.
it was such a wonderful opportunity, and my composer class had like 12 people in it. So like we had 12 brand new, never heard before pieces that were scored and premiered in that academic year, all in one fun concert. So I mean that's probably one of the greatest opportunities I've ever had as a musician. And also shout out to my good friend Isabella Igawa, who was the violin soloist who played my violin concerto that night with Maestro Daniel Curtis in the CMU Philharmonic. It was one of the most special opportunities that I've ever had. And also, like going to the Friends thing, like she is an amazing violinist and we've collaborated before and she makes beats and whatnot. And I think, just being friends with people who are so like who I can relate to in that way and also who are just so wickedly talented, it's priceless.
And so this is really interesting because your your position or your position while you were in school and what you were going for, what your major was, will differ from a lot of people's answers to this question. But do you feel like your education specifically was worth it? And I guess I'll break it up into technically two parts. So,
Mhm.
do you think that number one were the academics worth it? You know, your professors just being in the area and in school and doing like your projects and your work and everything. Do you think that was all worth it? Do you find value in that even now?
Bits and pieces, yes. I think that a lot of arts education can kind of be like not totally relevant to what you want to do outside of school, but like, it's art. It's first off subjective, but also like how do you build an art curriculum where it's just like, you know, where you have to have it like assignments and papers and all that sort of thing, but also like pursue, for me, like writing music at the same time. So admittedly, not all of it's relevant. I don't use everything today, and I don't think it's necessarily designed that way either. It's not like with like computer science, like you need there are certain hard skills that you need, whether it be proficiency in multiple programming languages or having an understanding of mathematics to a high degree, and that sort of thing. It's not like that because also again, like art careers can be, there's a whole breadth of like what you can do in the arts. But I would
Yeah.
be happy to
Yeah.
kind of share some of the most important things I learned at Carnegie Mellon. And one of them was a class called The Roots of Rock and Roll. And I think it was a history class. But the whole theme of that class was you get to build yourself up and make yourself up as you go along. And we looked at examples throughout history in American music of people almost building a persona. Like Elvis Presley, I'm pretty sure like in his high school yearbook photo, like he didn't look like the Elvis Presley that was like on tour and doing the rock and roll
Oh
thing.
wow. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
he was very academic. I think he was in a lot of academic clubs as well, which you wouldn't think about somebody who was like in a way like a sexual icon at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and received a
Yeah.
lot of backlash, because of the time period. Um, but it really had me think differently about what I was at Carnegie Mellon for, because I had kind of done the composition thing because I was like, "Oh, I'm good at this. I like it. I like this. Um, Going to school for it makes the most sense, whatever that means." And I kind of went into it because like that's all I knew at the time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna write music for orchestras or small ensembles, and I'm gonna, receive commissions for my work, and I'm just gonna keep going to school forever. Like I think a common path for the modern composer is to get your undergrad, go to grad school, get your PhD, write a thesis, and then like be a resident composer for like a group or an ensemble. And it turned out that like I like that idea of writing compositions pen and paper or like notation software, sending it out to competitions, and like that's cool and all. But I really this class about being able to make yourself up, I was like, oh, I'm actually like a performer, you know? Like I'm
Yeah.
like that's not, and that's kind of where the Sherman plays idea uh came as well into the play. I was like, wait a second, like why don't I do the things that I really actually like doing?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like a crazy thing to ask when you're like 20 years old. But no, it was a revelation to me. And you don't have to be what other people like think you are. And the thing of that is like social media, for example. um Sherman Plays is like a character. Like a lot of my work on social media is like in a way acting.
Oh,
But I
interesting.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it's also like at its core, I mean, the idea of Sherman Plays is kind of like a version of my authentic self. But anything on social media can't be 100% authentic just because
Yeah.
of the medium itself. But that class really told me to think outside of the box, and I'm really glad it did. Another class that absolutely changed the trajectory for me, it was only offered my senior year, like the spring of my senior year. It was the first time they were having this class. It was media scoring with this wonderful like professor, Nathan Bloom. He had been scoring pictures in like Hollywood. He was out. He's out
Whoa.
there doing
Yeah.
the thing. Like he scored the Flash series. I can't remember which streaming platform it's on, but the TV show, the Flash, and
Oh,
um,
dang. Yeah.
yeah. So crazy opportunity that just happened right when I was about to leave CMU. And, I had been scoring like animations and short films, kind of like, I was just kind of getting my hands on whatever I could as a composer and like trying to, and I don't mean like they were bad opportunities. They're fantastic opportunities, but it was more so I was doing it because I thought that's what composers do. Like they kind of do a little bit of
Yeah.
everything, and you kind of experiment musically in art school. But this class really turned things for me because he told it how it is. Like he gave us industry level insights into what it means to be a film, TV, documentary composer, and I learned a lot of those hard skills. Like up until this point, I had been using software that wasn't even industry standard to score films. Like
Oh,
in
wow.
Logic, which is like the Apple DAW digital audio workstation, you can import a movie and then line things up with your music real time. In Propellerhead's Reason, you can't even import a video. Like I had to have a
Oh my
video
gosh.
on one screen and then Reason on the other, and like kind of hope things lined up. But it just showed me like, look, man, there is so much that you're leaving on the table here with the film stuff. And then it just clicked for me. It's like, oh no, like you really, like, yeah, you want to make your own compositions, and like that's fulfilling for you as an artist, but like career wise, you want to work with people. Like I love this collaborative element of like working with an animator or working with a director, and like telling a story through music and helping uh using that emotional part of music, which has always been with me my entire life, and
Yes.
also keeping
Yes.
this orchestral tradition that I grew up with and playing in symphonies my whole life, keeping that alive and at the forefront of world culture. Um, like this is like combining every single interest I have into one, and I just had this epiphany by working on these cues in this class. And I was like, this has elements of the theater because I acted in high school. It has elements of every sort of music genre that I've ever worked in my entire life. And I was like, this is it. And that was the turning point for me where I'm like, I am a film, TV, documentary scorer. Like that is at its core what I want to be doing. And I'm so thankful to Nathan for his guidance, and for Carnegie Mellon for even having that be a class that I attended, because it really changed so much for me, um as a musician.
That was such a good point that you made for the first part of this, that especially for professors in your classes, of course, I think the main objective, especially that they want you to learn, and even a lot of students, especially outside of our field, especially outside of the creative field, is you're going to learn things in your classes that you're going to use, or you think you're going to use. You're going to learn that information. And a lot of that is true with, I know I keep responding to, or keep going back to the STEM fields, and
Mhm.
how you have to learn a lot of that actual information to carry on to your career, which is good. But especially for like humanities and then our creative field, I think it's more important, and kind of what you spoke on is it's more important to, yes, learn information, because there's some things that you have to learn and carry on that's useful. But I
Mhm.
think more importantly that your professors are actually, what they're teaching you is helping you realize what you want to do, and kind of like you were saying at the end, and I guess just throughout that explanation, that you learn that you want to be a TV, film, documentary, just media involved composer. You wanted to have emotion filled narrative storytelling music and compositions. And you, it seems like you learned more from just like that experience helped you learn more about what you wanted to do. Like the information was still important, but you learned, you grew throughout that period, and you narrowed down what you really wanted. And then once you knew, you took that information, you took some of that information, the necessary information that you needed, and carried on with it. But I think that's what, for, and I'll say creative fields again because I know it's not the same for everybody, but I think
Mhm.
that's what students going into college, teens going into college, need to understand, that when you're going into the humanities and the arts, I think it's more important for you to, and it depends on the major too, but I think it's more important for you to learn what you want to do in college, and how to do it, rather than just, okay, I'm going to ingest this information. I'm going to absorb this, and then I'm going to carry this, and hopefully it'll be enough to just help me during my career path while I'm working for the next 50 years, 40 years, whatever. So I think that the first part there was so important that you revealed, is what I believe as well, is you have to grow in college. You have to think for yourself, and you have to know what you want to do. And like I said, the information is still important, but um, I guess would you say that was the key for you as well? Is learning from that teaching, but learning in not just the informational way?
Oh, 100%. I would say um, pick and choose what you really dive deep into. Obviously, strive for straight A's. I think that learning is important no matter what the subject matter may be, and being rigorous with your and disciplined with your academics carries into all aspects of life. So even if you're studying calculus and you're going to the arts, I would argue that it's important to study calculus to the best of your ability and to get the very best grades you can, because overall that's going to make you a more disciplined person. um, and another bit of really good advice that I got from a professor, um, who they had this like wellness series on YouTube, and one thing that I really enjoyed from that series, which I explored on my own time. It wasn't like we were graded to watch this professor's wellness YouTube, but what spoke to me was he was saying, make sure you do your creative, like if you're a composer, you compose. If you're an instrumentalist, you practice. Um, Make sure you do what it is you're there at Carnegie Mellon to do before you do the homework. Because what are you really in art school for? And you know, grades, it's good to have, like if you can get a 4.0, like fantastic. That'll be good for applying to other schools eventually. But I don't know if like anyone's like, hey man, Sherman, can you hop on this jazz gig? Like I heard you had like a 3.8. I don't know what my GPA was, but you got like I heard you got a 4.0 from Carnegie Mellon. That's not how it works even remotely. Which for STEM,
Yeah,
it very
yeah,
much could work that way. You got to have a certain GPA threshold in order to even get an interview for these firms. But yeah, it's very important to prioritize. Okay, I'm here to write music. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it every day. And I'm going to do that before my homework. And sometimes, you have a paper that's due, whatever, but it's important that you get that part of your day done before homework, because it's not as much about homework. It's about growing as an artist and also making friends because, music school friends are going to be with you your entire life. Like you never know, maybe at the very least, maybe you'll need a roommate someday and they're living in the city that you want to live in, Like you never know when, like you're going to be able to even just like make something with somebody someday or even to just have
Yeah.
someone to chat with, going through
Yeah.
the same stuff that you are.
And I think that how this compares to, or I guess that brings us into how does that compare to the what was it the opportunities and the networking. So besides the actual education and the relationship with the professors, and I guess this could be like professor related too if they
Mhm.
gave you those opportunities, but um, compared to the value, the actual education, how would that compare to the opportunities that you took and that you were given, and then the networking that you had there, or the networking that you participated in there? Because I know I know you sort of have to balance this a little bit,
Mhm.
and I did as well, like with networking and with like the things that you had to do and the things that you wanted to do versus like your education. So how would you rate the two? Was one more important to you specifically, or do you think one is more important than the other to a wider group of people? Or
I can only speak to my own experience, but if I had to guess, I would say this is probably pretty universal. If you're pursuing music specifically, networking was more important. Now, what I don't want people to think is that the Carnegie Mellon education I received was not groundbreaking or not thorough
yeah,
or
yeah,
any of that because that's not my point. My point is networking that is that important. And what I mean by networking is there's I see it in two different lights because I hate the word networking. Like anytime I hear that, like I have alarm bells going in my mind. And a lot of that has to do with I'm a very shy person. I'm not very good at like approaching people and saying hi. I know that's kind of how we met at the film event. Like I don't know who approached who, but like it's a very uncomfortable thing for me to do, and it's something I'm always working on. So I kind of have a
you
love hate
seemed
relationship.
calm. I mean, funny enough, you seemed very approachable to me, or at least when you approached me, you seemed very like calm. And
Ah,
I mean, I would say I know that confident can go like two ways, but like confident in like a good way. Like you were like it seemed like you wanted to talk to people and that you were involved, and that was good because like you actually helped me talk to other people, because all I was doing was sitting at that table for like 20 minutes or whatever. And I think I saw you before, and I'm like, well, that guy looks kind of younger, so like he might have like a similar mindset to me, or like maybe be interested in some similar things or something, or like just have a good conversation. So uh at that event, I mean, you did really well in my eyes. You did great. Yeah.
well, thank you. That's very kind of you and very reassuring. But I mean, let this be an example of like how our inner monologue can really take us out of reality. I have this voice screaming at me of like, "Oh no, like you're awkward, you're shy, like you're gonna like make somebody feel uncomfortable if you go walk up and talk to them." But that's all they are is thoughts, and it's a sometime you can identify like, oh, where does that come from, like how do I, obviously like there are resources, there's therapy, there's talking with friends and whatever, and like I always think that people should really explore those things. um
Yeah.
but yeah, and like let's use that as an example. You didn't see any of that. You thought I was confident when meanwhile I was like kind of like, I mean, I I wasn't like visibly shaking, but that's how like
Yeah.
my little
Yeah. Yeah.
inner person was. I was like, I was terrified. And it's not that, you're terrifying. It's just the fear, I think, of the unknown. But once we started having a conversation, it was like boom, 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 like it was electric, and it was a wonderful conversation. So there's when it comes to networking, I think there are I did at one point I made an Instagram reel about this. I hate the word networking because there is this focus. It can be done pretty poorly in some cases because you can't just use people. Like that is like we're in the art world. We're not here to manipulate. We're not here to ask like
Yeah.
favors. So you always need to be in the mindset of like if there's a situation where you literally can't return any value, like somehow make it. Um, I think if you spend time making genuine friendships with art people, that is going to be way better for you than like being fake or like asking people for favors or like sending general emails like copy and pasted crap that is like, hey, I do this, what opportunities do you have for me? Like that comes off really poorly.
Yeah.
From what I
Mm.
what I've heard. So first, and I think your priority should be make a lot of good friendships, like people that and don't let it be a networking thing. Like fully throw that word out the window. It's just sitting there on the lawn, and you're here inside looking at it and laughing and saying, "Haha, you're out the you went through the window." Friendship, like genuine. Don't don't be fake about it. Like if you don't like somebody, you don't like somebody, and like that's totally cool. But friendship first. Two, there is another kind of networking, I would say, which is the scarier of the two. And once you're able to make friends and genuine connections, this next part may become a little bit easier. It's the whole like more of like a pitch. Maybe there is a filmmaker in your area who's established, who is regularly doing work with a budget, and you admire what they do, and you would love to like connect with them in some way, but like you feel like, oh, I might not have anything to offer. So there's this whole like send them an email, let them know like you're really interested in this project they're working on, and this is your experience that you've had, and this is what you bring to the table. You can ask them to get coffee and just like chat, because people, believe it or not, people like talking about themselves and their work. And I'm not saying that's going to
Yeah.
get guarantee you an opportunity, but at the very least, there's two humans sitting grabbing coffee talking about their favorite things in the world. Like that's such a beautiful thing. And also you could be like, hey, if you don't have any room in like your next project, maybe like could I shadow you, could I learn from you, like would you would you let me be a mentee for whatever it is? And like, I mean, gosh, the worst that someone could say is no. I mean, like, but
It's what we
what
hear all the time. Yeah.
what is on the receiving end of that, somebody like a young person sends you an email, compliments your work, sends their resume. At least I'm like, wow, like this person's ambitious. This person's no joke. They take their art seriously. They take their work seriously. You know what? Why not? Why not get a coffee with this person? Like maybe I have work. Like maybe I'm super booked as a composer, and like I need someone to help orchestrate my parts, or like edit my Instagram reels, or like or even just like be on set to like hold a boom microphone. Like I don't know, but like people who are have artistic careers, time is not their friend. Like they have a lot of
Yeah,
things going on, and
yeah.
a lot of that work that they're doing possibly could be offloaded to, an assistant. So that is a meaningful connection where you're not manipulating anybody. You're offering yourself as value, and without necessarily asking for value in return. And I think that's the best way to go about it. But networking is so key. It's really who you know. And I've been able to make relationships with people even through Instagram where I would have never, like, I've been to LA once, but like I work
Oh
with
wow, yeah,
people in LA who I've never met because of like an Instagram video I made with one of my friends who I graduated with at CMU. I happened to be playing saxophone. They're like, "Hey, I make beats. Do you want to play saxophone on my beats?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And you know, I've made quite a few friends that way of just like both really loving music and wanting to collaborate. And that's not something that's really you get out of a class. Maybe you'll meet somebody in a class, but and there's also the professor student relationship, which I wish I would have put more emphasis
yeah.
in when I was in school, but I had this shyness about me. But it definitely make relationships with your professors, like, ask them how they're doing, and like genuinely, like, just I mean, again, don't be like, "Hey, give me work to do," because that's not necessarily going to work. But like, you know, go to office hours. Talk about things outside of what you're doing. Like everybody wants to talk about themselves or to talk about their interests. So there's no reason why you shouldn't like become friends with a professor. You never know, like, what that's going to do for you as well.
And you made a really good point of networking that I definitely believe now, and I still think I do, like you, hate the term networking because I think that what networking has turned, the word itself has turned into now, is something that's sort of stale and is supposed to be looked at as something. I mean, it's serious, and I think you're supposed to be appropriate and professional when you're meeting people, and you're doing things at events like that. But like you said, networking is also grabbing a coffee with somebody or having a simple conversation or whatever, just something like that. So yes, it is be professional, but it's also it's like you treating a stranger the right way.
Right.
If you're saying hi to somebody, if you're exchanging pleasantries at the very least with somebody that you don't know, like at a grocery store or like on the sidewalk, or just something like that. It's networking can be networking can be that. Networking can be conversations. And uh what we've done to networking, I think, is we've turned it into something that, yes, you need, and it's a big stressor, like we how we're just talking about now. Networking is very important, but we're thinking of it more as a word rather than an actual action. And then we're thinking of it as a suit and tie action rather than reaching out on Instagram, reaching out through an
Yeah.
email, reaching out um, in a casual but a professional way. And just like you mentioned, with authenticity is so important because people can see right through that. People can
Mm-hmm.
see, uh, a fake try or intent with it, rather than somebody being authentic and asking, or genuine and asking. And that's not to say that everything is going to go well, or you're going to get a
Right.
response for everything, but I think people need to learn that networking um, is more. There's probably a better term for it than casual, but it doesn't have to be hyped up so much. It doesn't have to be made so stressful. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
talking to people, like you said, and even for me too, is can be stressful at times when you're at an event and you're just expected to talk to people because you think when you're not there, oh, I love to talk to people, or I'm good at talking to people, or I have that personality. People have told me I have that personality, that I'm good at talking with people. And you might be, but it's still that first step of reaching out. And it could be something as little as, oh, I said hi, but they didn't hear me because it's either too loud or they were talking to somebody else. And then you're like, well, should I say hi again, or should I should I move
Right.
on to somebody else? Like, should I try it again? Because like, if I try it again, am I gonna sound weird? And then if I do try it again and they don't hear me, then it's like two times. Then it's like, if nobody responds to me now, like if the first person hasn't responded to me, who's gonna say anybody else is either? So it's yes, you have to try, and like, yes, you have to get out there, but don't think of it as something super serious and something that you have to
Mhm.
be super like yes, be professional, but don't be locked up about it. Don't be stiff about it and have to act a certain way. Be genuine as possible. Be professional, be appropriate in your personality, but be genuine. Be if you're humorous, add humor into it. If you're more I guess maybe not dry is like the best personality to have that approach with, but like just try to be genuine. I guess that's
Mhm.
that's the best advice that we both could probably give is be genuine be genuine with it, and don't think of networking as something that is stiff and totally serious and like life breaking if something doesn't happen even on the first person.
Absolutely, and I think it matters about context too. Like if you're gonna ask somebody about their career on LinkedIn, like don't go into it and say like, "Hey, girly," like don't don't
Yeah.
don't do any of that stuff. But like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
person, if you're asking a friend about a project, like sure, like if that's how you talk and like or if you have a lot of humor or whatever, like that's one thing. If you're gonna chat with someone who's established in the industry, like show respect. I'm not saying just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
shower somebody with like, oh, I love what you do, like I'm your biggest fan, like because nobody likes that either. But um show
Yeah.
your respect and you know like try to be as human as possible at the same time. But like you gotta it's a skill that not everyone has, unfortunately, but it's something you can build, is being able to read the room and know what's appropriate in what context versus others. In social media, in most contexts you can be a little bit more informal. Like I like to use emojis and say yay or like slay. I'm about that. But I'm probably not going to say that to like somebody who's like scoring AAA films that
Yeah.
I really admire their work. I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
OMG Bestie Slay. Like no, no. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say that. I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, thank you for your attention to this matter. Not like that, but sort of like that.
Yeah. 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 It's important and like you said to be informal in the situations that call for that, and then be uh again, don't be stiff, but be more professional and respectful with those situations that call for that as well. So yeah, but so post college, so you've been post college, around 3 years, roughly 3 years or so now.
Hmm.
What has what has that been like so far, and what were your immediate thoughts? Let's just say the first 3 months out of college. What were you looking for? What were you trying? Were you um I guess I'm guessing you were maybe applying to things or like looking for work or whatever, but you were also trying to figure out, what to do afterwards, and then what you wanted to do afterwards.
Absolutely. So there were some kind of like life changing or just like life events. I thought my life was going to go one direction, but it so turned out that the only option for me that I felt like was going to be a good thing for me was to move back to Pittsburgh because I had been at home that summer since graduation, which is York, Pennsylvania, which is not necessarily a hearth for um, like musical opportunity at like a city like Pittsburgh is. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't really want to go to grad school. I kind of want to just do my own thing, like move out of the house and give music a try, which for better or for worse, um, I don't really know, but so I moved back to Pittsburgh, and naturally I had to pay the bills, so I was like, I'm not gonna be picky. I'm going to maybe like work at a restaurant or I actually ended up being a barista at which that was a funny story. I walked back onto Carnegie Mellon's campus and I went to the library and I saw that there was a new cafe being built and I was
Oh
like,
wow,
"Oh,
yeah.
interesting." And I was talking to the girl behind the counter and she was super nice and I was like, "Oh, you guys applying?" She's like, "Yeah. Yeah, just send an email to so and so." And without any coffee experience, I was hired. I worked there for like 6 months. I lived with some of my best friends who were still in school at the time. So it kind of felt like I was sort of in school because like I was seeing a lot of people who were still at Carnegie Mellon in the School of Music, even though I was like in career mode, like I was working.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then the barista thing, as fun as it was for like 6 months, I was like, I feel super physically drained after working like 40 hours a week on my feet. Like this is just not a good match for me. Like I'm trying to do all this like music stuff, like recording, playing gigs, and the film scoring thing as well, and social media. Like I just can't balance that without having any energy. Like I was falling asleep like after my shifts at work because I was just like so physically drained. So I was like, this
Yeah.
has to change. This
Yeah.
is not a good balance. And then I applied for temporary employment at CMU, and I landed a job in enrollment services where it's kind of like customer service, where families and students call if they have like a financial billing registrar question, and that's where I am today. I was able to start a career in like enrollment services, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity because I get to help people throughout the day, and then when I'm not at work I get to do the music thing, and like there's I don't have to worry about money as much, and like I don't have to put all this pressure in like, oh, I can only take like paid music gigs or whatever. But fresh out of school, I was kind of like, man, I'm just going to kind of do what being a musician seems to be, which after a few years, after some soul searching, was not the answer for me specifically. But I was like, oh, what do musicians do after they graduate? Huh. They post on social media. They go play gigs. So you get paid to play at weddings. Or they teach or whatnot. Or which I was doing a little bit of that. Like I would be playing jazz gigs with my friends, and I would be playing violin and saxophone at weddings. And it was a couple years of that, and I realized recently that it's like you don't have to just do things because that's what other musicians do, which is like that may be obvious to some, but in practice it's not what I was doing. I do love performing to a certain extent, but I don't know if like making money through music is necessarily the end goal for me, especially performing, because there's money in it, but it's not like, I don't think I'd be able to survive off of performing alone. So again, then it's also why I have a 9 to 5 is, so I don't have to worry about, only taking things that are paid or really stressing.
Yeah.
And there's some people who do that, and it's a hustle and it's a grind, and I really admire how they can put everything into music and make it into an income. But that's not for me. But through relationships I've made at Carnegie Mellon, and also like even just like finding film scoring gigs in itself is a hustle. Like I'm active in the film scoring subreddit, which I've been able to have like beautiful opportunities with working with students who study in the UK. I've scored 2 documentaries for like
Wow.
school
Wow.
yeah, it's so cool to say like, oh, I've been able to work with people like across the pond, I guess, but like
Yeah.
across the world,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and like completely remotely. And doing one of those led me to another, which it was like the same class, but I did the students were like, oh, we really liked working with Sherman Plays. You should reach out to him, and so I was able to score a second documentary that way. But also, it's been uh, and the networking thing, like it's crazy. Like the great thing about Pittsburgh is like there's so much opportunity, but it's not a huge town. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people know, how do I say, I mean, everybody kind of knows each other, which is really nice. So like if I bump into somebody in a jazz context, I'm like, hey man, like I really dig your playing, like what's your Instagram or whatever. And like you build this friendship. Um Chances are they know people in the film world too, and they'll be like, oh, I actually study with this, like my current roommate Eli. We play in a band together called Wild Blue Yonder, but the first time I met him, we were playing jazz together, and uh, I told him I was into film scoring, and he's like, "Hey, man, like I'm actually working on this film with students at the University of Pittsburgh, and it's like a feature. It's a 90-minute film, and like I do my own composing with it too. Like, you want
Oh
to
wow.
get on
Yeah.
board?" And so it turned out to be this project that we worked on for 2 years, like co-composing. And the film was called Wire. It's by I think it's by 7 to 8 Productions, and it
Wow.
should
Wow.
be, if you want to keep in touch with the film, I'll plug it. It's at Wire Film 2026. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
definitely.
the premiere is early 2026, but um I'd never scored a feature film. Like it was an immense project, but so rewarding. I mean, I joke with Eli, I think we learned a lot more of what not to do than versus like what to do, but like
Yeah.
how else
Mhm.
are you going to learn those
Mhm.
skills when without working on a 90-minute project, but that's been really fulfilling. The 48-hour film festival projects have been very fruitful as well, attending these
Yeah.
film networking events. Like, gosh, I've had so many beautiful opportunities open up because of just even being in the room and just chatting with people. Um, so we actually had one premiered on Tuesday, a 48-hour horror film, and the awards ceremony is coming up here, and my team did a brilliant job, and I'm really
Sweet.
happy with the music. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Very happy with the music that I was able to make in a span of 2 days. But yeah, so it's been a lot of like figuring out like how do I really want to be spending my time? And a lot of that has been, social media, but also like I really want to dial back on performing and really focus on the film scoring aspect, which has been a recent development.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of people are in that direction. A lot of creatives are in that direction, and it's I think it's different sometimes because those who want to pursue like YouTube, let's just say YouTube specifically, whether they're doing covers of songs, which is really really popular. And then I guess
Hmm.
like I mentioned, towards the beginning, then they'll do some of their original songs and everything, and try to gain traction there. So people will be doing YouTube, creatives will be doing YouTube. They'll be doing social media, sort of the same thing as what they were doing on YouTube, or it varies, something different like that. But besides that, it's either you're working as an independent that way, you're working as sort of a independent, or like a co-producer, or a collaborator. That's what I was gonna say, is
Right.
a collaborator on a film, or like these different projects. Um, Whether they're smaller, if they're short films, or like you said, feature films. They just they vary in size sometimes. Or you have those that are have climbed the ladder in that way and are at the higher level. So it just seems like people are doing a lot of different things. And thinking of you specifically now, for you being 25 and doing all of this, I mean, these are some really good achievements, especially for a feature film. And working on that for 2 years and everything, and putting all that work in, and seeing like where that could go, and where that experience could go, and the people that see it, and the people that hear it, and hear your work that's done to it, and say, you know what, wow, I really like this. I really like how this sounds, or I really like his approach to it. Maybe let's add him onto another project, this bigger project, with a different person, or the same people, or whatever. And just all this experience that you've gotten after school has, I think it's really served you well, from what it sounds like. You getting this experience, and and like you said, you're you're learning more, like you're excelling at it. But like you said, with your friend, you guys made more mistakes than you thought, and you're learning about that more than you thought. And it's so relatable to me, because even just being even doing like somewhat consistent content over like the last 3 months or so, I've learned so much with the tools that the tools that I'm using, and like the editing and the skills and everything that I'm using, that it's like you just continually keep building. You just have to. And uh it's funny, because I think there's some times where you think it's so hard, and then you finally figure it out, and then you're using it for like a month or two, or a couple months, and then you look back and you're like, why did I struggle with that so much? Why didn't I think of that in the first place? But
Mm.
then as you go through that and you look back, it gets easier. Like the more that you actually do, and the more that you experiment and practice and everything, your mind sort of changes in more of a thinking way, and you're thinking more than one step ahead. You're thinking two or three steps, and thinking, okay, it could be this, it could be this, instead of being stuck on something that that was your mindset, I guess, or your way of thinking before. But you're solving problems faster, and you're doing things more efficiently. So um, I think it sounds like that it is the case for both of us. But
Hmm.
I think it depends. I think some people tend to really skyrocket, as in getting gig after gig after gig, or opportunity and jobs after jobs. And then there's it's just layers of people. And I think between the ages, especially like 25 to 30, or 20 to 30, you're constantly uh, in that place, and in different places, working on different projects. And then it only takes one. It only takes that one project to really just propel yourself, and to work on bigger things, I guess. Or I guess things that pay more, in a sense, like we were talking about earlier. Maybe not 7 figures or 6 figures or whatever, but something that's, oh, I can quit my current 9 to 5, and I
Hmm.
can do this, and I have more opportunities, and I know more people. And it's just like, so it's like a whole system in that way.
No, I couldn't agree more.
What is a composer? Because I think a lot of people, they might know a composer as, or they might even mistake a composer for a conductor, somebody that's
Mm.
involved with like an orchestra, or something related to that. But or people might know like what an actual composer is, but they don't know the depth of what they do. So what would you say a composer is? And then what are you as a composer? And how does that relate to you specifically, like in your strengths and your likes?
Anytime you see composer, like music composer or composed by, what that's trying to tell you is that someone took music from their collected experience, um, changed it up, hopefully, otherwise it's plagiarism, and
Yeah.
added it to whatever it is. So if it's a concert and you see a piece, maybe a Beethoven symphony, or it's a symphony number one composed by Ludwig von Beethoven. Um, he is the guy who went on the keyboard and played the notes and wrote it down on a manuscript paper and gave the parts to the musicians. Well, at least in the case of the very first premiere, but they are literally the person who hears the music in their heads, either writes it down or puts it into notation software or into a DAW,
Yeah.
and they're like the songwriter but for music essentially. Now I don't like you may see definitions of people saying like, oh, a composer creates music. I think that's very untrue. I think originality is a myth to me, because I think
Yeah.
anytime someone makes something, they never truly create it, because creation is making something from nothing, which every person, musician or not, has like a collective consciousness and experience of music. That's why people who don't study music can even like whistle a tune, is because whether we study it or not, music is happening around us. It's not something you can escape. Um, so I would say that a composer is a maker of music, like almost like taking building blocks from like or Legos and putting things together and rearranging things to make something that's innovative or unique. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but using different parts of their musical memory to make something new. So
Yeah.
like I think the most prominent and popular form of composer is going to be like a movie composer or a TV composer, a video game composer. That's where you'll see it the most often, unless you're in the concert music scene where like there's jazz compositions, like people who write melodies and chords, or people who compose music for orchestra or for instruments. That's a thing too. Me, I don't know. I kind of look at myself as an artist, um, because I do make music, but I also play around. Like a lot of my fun to be had is going through Logic and going through all the different sounds and scrolling into. I find something that is like, oh, that's a cool idea, and then putting things together that don't normally go together, and making something wacky or making something emotional. Um, and like also I feel like making stuff on social media, like having that creative outlet in itself is comparable to music composition. So I wear a couple hats as a composer. There's composing for the self, like writing stuff that I like and trying to grow as a composer. There's writing for a project, which is a lot of like film scoring, and like a lot of that's dictated by what the project is or what the emotional appeal is going to be, and decisions from the director as well. And then there's also like songwriting or writing poetry, or I think that's all in the same. But yeah, I definitely wear a couple hats.
And is there like, um, I know that you were telling me at the career connect that we had what you are interested in like genre wise. So what would you say is your let's stick to your want for narrative composition, like storytelling composing.
Hmm.
Um what do you like? What are the sounds? Do you like the jazz type? Do you like um others, or does it just depend on like the writing? Does it just depend on
Hmm.
the story and the moment that you're in?
I mean, I love all music. Um, but that obviously doesn't answer your question. I think the I my skills lend themselves towards more suspenseful music or even horror, thriller, because I really like excitement. But that also doesn't mean that, like, if a project calls for, a really um like romantic or melancholy strings, like, absolutely we'll be able to pull that off. But I think a lot of my music is really rhythmically intense. Like the stuff I write for myself is rhythmically intense. It's a little dissonant. It pulls from jazz, it pulls from classical music. If I had to list some examples, Shostakovich, Stravinsky, um, Hans Zimmer, all composers that I borrow from frequently.
And I guess just let's see. Okay, so I guess yeah, I guess we can just head straight into that. So um, I know that and you can explain this more because I might be getting it wrong, but we were talking about it at the Crew Connect as well about your interest when it comes to genres of TV and animation
Hmm.
and anime too, and then
Yeah.
films as well. Um, I guess what is your overall interest when it comes to what medium? What is
Hmm.
the medium that you enjoy the most, and then what is the genre that you enjoy the most as well?
Film is number one for me. I'm not really good at keeping track of, like, I don't have like the discipline to get through an entire show for the most part, but there
Oh,
are a couple shows I really do like. Um, but I think sci-fi I enjoy, drama. I mean, whatever category Good Will Hunting is, it's one of my favorite movies. Love
oh
that.
yeah.
Um, I do like I think a lot of my compositional style comes from playing video games as well. So I'll throw that out there. Some animated series that I've really liked. Jujutsu Kaisen. It's like changed the way I see art. Arcane was a big one, like just as a like art and music. Um, so if I had to put it on a genre, like, I love orchestral music. But that kind of lends itself, I feel like, more to animated style. So like Pixar, DreamWorks, like I love Kung Fu Panda, I love Ratatouille. It's one of my favorite film scores. So a lot of kids movies, believe it or not, because that's what I grew up watching. And so that orchestral Michael Giacchino sound was kind of in my ear. John Williams, like all like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, like all of that. It's just a masterclass in film scoring.
And I think it's a good point that you bring up too is um, when you were talking about like the Disney, the Pixar, the DreamWorks movies, the animated films. This is what I had talked about with people before on the podcast and then with just private conversations in general. But I always have such like a fire when it comes to people saying like, oh, those films are made for kids. They're
Mm,
like children's movies, and I'm just like, man, have you lost it, or are you just like not
right.
like a movie lover, or you just like don't like shows or something? Because this is literally why this is the reason why I love animation is because it can do so many things that live action can't.
Hmm.
It does so much, and uh whether I guess whether I was going to bring it up before during the composer question or now is composing goes so well with animation and with anime than it ever will with live action. I
Hmm.
think I could be wrong in that, and I guess that means I'd have to watch more live action and do the comparisons. But like I was saying, like there's a type of magic that comes with animation, and then when you add that the composing element with it is just there's just something about it that live action can't do and that other mediums can't do. Animation is um it's something else, and it shouldn't be just because it's exaggerated and it's a lot of them are comedies, and a lot of them involve a lot of humor, and a lot of humor that is attractive to a younger audience. And maybe not for some of them don't have, they have good themes, but like the story isn't like too complex. It's like not too hard to follow or anything like that. But it shouldn't be reserved for just a younger audience, and that's why
Mhm.
I think that just because people say that they're kids movies and that they're made for kids, that doesn't stop people, adults, from enjoying them, and that's what we see already now. So I wish they would shift that. I would much rather hear they are movies that are made for families or children and
Mm.
family movies, because I think that's a lot better um, category, and I think that's how the category has been known now. Or I've seen a lot of it like on Netflix or on Hulu or whenever, when I'm looking at movies,
Mhm.
I'll see it under that category, children and family movies. So I think that's a lot better, and I think it's really important for families to watch those movies together, because a lot of them are made with great values, and they teach you a lot, and you can learn a lot from them. And even if you're not watching them with your family, your parents, or whoever else, even if you're watching them solo, there's so many great values that you can learn and that you can be reminded of. That's why I think that you can also do more with animation, the
Mhm.
inspiration and the impact. And that's when we were talking, and what I want to do in the future for producing wise is, I think that we've lost a lot of that in um, the modern day for animation, especially. And I want to bring like good values back, and inspiration for
Mhm.
people, because I've been inspired by these films. I enjoy that, and there's things that I've taken away from some films that have made me better, and have given me a different perspective and a different outlook, and just made me a better person, if that sounds
Mhm.
cheesy or not. But
Mm-mm.
those values are there, and I know that those values are there. But there's some times where, especially within like the last 10 years, where we've lost that a lot with the animated movies and series as well. They just seem bland. They don't seem there's nothing. You're right, there's nothing original, but there's nothing that's actually a wow anymore. We're only getting sequels, or we're only getting live action remakes, or anything like that. So I wish people would adopt that mindset more,
Mhm.
and especially in the future, like I said, that's what I want to create. And I know that we can. I know that animation can be brought back like that, and anime can be brought back like that. I like to do both. I guess I'd probably do more of animation than anime, or work on it more, just because I think I understand not just like the animation side for the drawing and everything, and then the work on the computer. But anime is different because it's Asian based. It's Japanese, and a lot of the culture is put in that, which is what I enjoy. I mean, I've learned a little bit about Japanese culture over these couple months, and I really enjoy what shows up in the series and in the films that I've watched before. But I think for me to do it respectfully and appropriately, and
Mhm.
not to make any mistakes or mess up, hopefully people would understand that. But just to learn about it fully enough before doing anything with it, that's what I would do. But I definitely like to do that in the future, directing, producing, or anything like that, because anime is a little bit different than animation, and it captures things that American animation doesn't either. So I guess the overall is, yes, I wish people would not just characterize this as things for children, but when it's not, when we've been shown countless examples that young adults watch these different mediums, and teenagers and adults even in their 30s and so on. So I know it's not a huge market for the adults, but um, it can be very good for people growing up or continuing to grow even in their 30s. Yeah.
My hot take is that Nemo is not a family movie. It is way too intense for little
Oh,
kids to
oh
be
yeah.
watching it. I was watching that like earlier this year. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. Like I mean, spoilers. There's a barracuda in the beginning. Bro, there's like sharks that are not friendly, even though they say they
Dang.
are.
Yeah.
There's bomb explosions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who are we kidding? This is not something that children should be watching. But I watched it a lot as a kid, and I turned out okay. So maybe
Yeah.
it's fine. But I'm like, this is an adult movie. Like, this is not for kids.
Yeah. And I think that's good too, that I think that even when we think of it, or at least how we're made to think of it, there's some themes that children shouldn't be exposed to, or some moments that children shouldn't be exposed to. I would say yes, and I would agree with that for like certain ages, but sometimes that's what is needed, and that's what is
Hmm.
helpful, is to see those more mature and intense moments, because that is reality, and that is reality, that's what reality is about.
Hmm.
um Reality isn't sugar coated in that way. You can be doing one thing in one instance, and then something horrible can happen. That's it's horrible, and it could be traumatizing in a way, but most people aren't going to see like war, or they're not going to see like catastrophes, or like a lot of things. But some people might see like a relative dying, or like that's still a very hard thing, or a pet dies, or just like another extreme incident, or something similar to that. But I think it's good to put that in there. Sometimes, depending on the age, I don't know where I would characterize that, because a lot of people are different, and a lot of kids are different, because of our environments,
Hmm.
and everything. But I think that's a good thing to put in there, is to not just make things G, but to make things PG, and to experience the reality of that, or involve the reality in that series, or that film, because that is what you're going to experience, and it could help you. It could expose you to those things, maybe in a more gentle way, I guess, or in a softer way, but it's still having an effect, an impact. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess last off, or I guess before the closer, you did mention Nemo, but are there other, like, do you have a top five favorite of like films, and series, or what does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, it would probably be some of the few that I mentioned. I think.
Oh,
Um,
that's right. I was gonna say, because you just said you just said that you don't usually finish series, or
right.
finish shows. So I think it's a little more. I guess it's a little more difficult in that way. I guess, even if there's more moments, like, is there moments from anything, whether it's been movies or shows, that have stuck with you, even if you
Mm,
haven't seen the whole thing? Is there something that's been an impact to you?
yes. Warning, spoilers. If you've not watched Kung Fu Panda, close your ears. Um, Master Uguay's death as he fades into the peach blossoms, like the petals, like that music. I listened to that this year. I cry just about every single time I hear it. I think I think the instrument's called like an erhu, and I really apologize. I don't mean uh, to you know bastardize um, like the culture or anything. So I do apologize if that's incorrect. But
Yeah.
there's an erhu melody and just beautiful strings that almost come out of like that just taper in when the wind starts blowing before he even like gets up and gets carried away. Like even before Shifu realizes, like the strings come in, and it's just one of the most beautiful musical moments that I have ever encountered. Like classical music, jazz music, all music. The other time that this happens is in Ratatouille. Again, spoiler warning. There's a scene where Ratatouille's or Remy is like running through like the streets of Paris. He's like going through this building, and he climbs up to the top, and he finally realizes this whole time he's been in Paris.
He's been in Paris. Yeah.
And you just have this overlook. I think it's like a sunset, but you see the entire sprawling city and the lights and everything. And this most
Yep.
gorgeous string melody plays, and it just gives me chills thinking about it. Like, that's like, man, if there's a reason to do art, it's because of those moments. And one more that comes to mind is in Arcane. Again, spoilers, huge spoilers. Like, if you go watch Arcane, if you haven't watched it, watch both seasons. It's beautiful. There's a moment where this character almost kind of realizes he's kind of like Jesus and he can like heal people. Um, and this beautiful but like haunting melody plays in the strings as he's like transfiguring this like really broken person. He has his hand out and he's healing it. And it's this there's this element of like magic and like savior trope, but also like something's off kilter, and like that's a hint, that's a foreshadow for what happens later on, because they think he's like a savior figure, but it, you know, I don't want to spoil the rest of the series, but it's just so ingenious the way the music sounds, both just like heavenly, but also like, oh, it kind of jabs into you a little bit, like puts you uneasy, like your stomach hurts a little bit, even though someone's like being revived in a way.
Yeah. 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 I agree. There's so many moments, and I think that's actually that that corrects me in saying, what are your favorites rather than what are your favorite moments. Because I think that's the impact. That's the impact that the moments have, and I think it is appropriate to split up the two. That you can enjoy movies and you can enjoy shows in their entirety and as a whole, but we also remember moments from them, and we take those moments out of them, and they're also very important and very um, impactful. So I think you can have the two, and I definitely know that I do, because there's moments that I like from a lot of different things. Like well, I guess I'm saying a lot, but like I only watch like I'm very selective on what I watch, but when
Mhm.
I do watch them, yes, there's a ton of great moments that I go back to and that are nostalgic and everything. But I couldn't have those moments alone. You have to have the context behind
Mhm.
whatever you're watching. So I think it's fair to say that you need the two, but um, people, yes, they get the main impact from those moments, and from particular scenes that they're watching. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
And I guess to close us out, um, what what okay. So what we talked about it a little bit. What do you think your future looks like? Let's just say the next 6 months. What are you excited about? What are you striving for? What do you want as of right now?
Peace. And that might be a strange answer, but I really want to strive for balance, because I've learned that um, if I have too much on my plate, or I'm doing musical stuff, but not necessarily what I am like really trying to do, like especially as a composer, I can get off the train, unfortunately. But prioritizing like spiritual time, like being in nature, and like doing creative things that just are fun. um I really want to do that, because that's, even though I'm not necessarily on the grind the entire time, it actually fuels like the projects that, I'm working on for like filmmakers and everything. I think living creatively and living with art in my life is the only way I can do all the things that I do. So in the next 6 months, like, I want to take on more film scoring projects. I hope to see the Wire film premiere. That would be so amazing. Should come out early next year. I also do social media management for a startup called Clef. We aim to seamlessly bridge the gap between musicians looking to get gigs and venues looking to hire musicians. So stay tuned with that if you want to check us out. Clef App Official on Instagram. Um, Also, I really want to plan my next move. I want to spend some time in New York. I don't know if that's going to happen like within 6 months, but I want to at least have a good plan in place there. And also, business wise, I would like to have my demo reel completed. So that is like, here is my music. Um, and I can share that with whomever. And really, like, a demo reel is what would bring somebody in and say, "Oh, I have the skills um to bring music to your project and tell that emotional story." So like, I'll have like a horror reel or like an action suspense reel, and like have different musical snippets just so I can share
Yeah.
that with people moving forward. But that's kind of it, just keep working on the projects that I have, keep doing the silly things on Instagram, and growing the social media channels, and keep doing my work for the startup, and lifting up as many people as I can in the process of pursuing beauty and art.
And where can people find you? What are your socials? What are you on?
So Instagram is where I'm most active. So that's at Sherman Plays. My other projects are at Edible Fork Spoon, if you like cringe content, at Clef App Official, that's the startup. And then also at Wild Blue Yonder. Again, that's WILD Blue Yonder. That's the band I'm in with my roommate. We're putting together a record. We're actually playing on Halloween, which is going to be cool, at Haven in Pittsburgh.
Oh, sweet.
Um, yeah. So if you want to stay tuned, we're Wild Blue Yonder on all streaming platforms as well. So like Spotify, Apple Music, that sort of thing. So
Gotcha. I'll put your I'll be sure to put the links down in the description for people to check you out and where you're at. Yeah.
well, thank you so much. This was such a blast. I think you have a such an infectious curiosity and just love for what you do, and I feel inspired from this conversation, and I'm grateful for for your time and your effort, and this was just so fun. So thank you so much.
Same to you. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was. It's funny because immediately when we talked at the Crew Connect, and I feel like I can find more people like this too, but a lot of the time when I've talked to the friend group that I have from high school and in college, a couple friends that I made, and just the people that I've been around with so far, I can't talk to people. Um, about the things that I enjoy in the way that I want to necessarily, or
Mm,
not the way that I want to, but in the depth that I would like to, because they just don't understand the way, and that's fine. People are different, but it's nice when you find other people that share the same reactions to things and the same thoughts on things, or similar thoughts like you, that can understand in a different way. And I think that's what separates creatives from a lot of people is they think deeper and they think
mhm,
more in depth and about certain things. And it's not even an empty thinking. The way that I was describing it before is how I'm focused on the values of it and how I see a lot of inspiration in the content that I watch. And that's what I want to provide for um, other people, because the things that you watch and the things that you're involved in, and just like your environment and everything, if you produce content like that for especially a younger generation, that can translate to their actual lives. That can
mhm,
translate into reality. And uh, if that can, if that can help people, if that can inspire people, if that can help people chase what they want to, uh, I'm glad that's what I did, and that's the goal. That's a lot of the goal. That's the main part, is to um, have people believe what they want to do, and they can do it, and they can achieve it. And it doesn't have to be something creative uh, related. It
Hmm.
can be something completely different. Somebody could want to be a rocket scientist, but watch something that I did or something that I was involved in, and know, hey, I can do this. This might be hard, this might be tough, but I can do this. I want to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to settle for anything less. I'm going to do this. And then they do it, and they are doing it, and they're happy with it. So I think that that's a major part in why I want to do it. And I mean, yeah, it's for the enjoyment of me too, because I think just the joy that it's brought me watching these things. I think creating it would be awesome as well, and to bring that content out there. I think I have good ideas for it, but people will be the judge of that, and if I need to change anything, so that'll be good too. But yeah, good conversation. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.